a bit for a moment about NIL. It has been a hot topic in particular this week for a couple of reasons in the state of Mississippi. And when I say NIL, we are specifically talking about collectives. The Bulldog Initiative in Starkville, the Grove Collective in Oxford. It has been an extraordinary week to 2 weeks for the Grove Collective, and it has been an extraordinary 4 days for the Bulldog Initiative. What has sparked the growth? I think it's two different things, but the same kind of general topic, right? Ole Miss fans seem to be reacting proactively. Wait.
Proactively reacting.
They are acting proactively. Whatever. Ole Miss fans are being proactive when it comes to Lane Kiffin. They have heard that Auburn has lots of money sitting in an NIL collective that is just waiting to be spent on an incoming recruiting class. And Ole Miss fans seem to want to try to preempt that being a reason for Lane Kiffin, should the opportunity arise, taking the Auburn job. And the Grove Collective has seen kind of exponential growth in the last week or two. Mississippi State may be a little more reactive, but exponential growth nonetheless. They have gone over 1,000 members, and that was a number that at the beginning of this week, hey, Dad, it was less than 500, right?
Oh, it was around 200.
Okay, so there were a couple of hundred members at the beginning of the week, and then the story came out that John Cohen, part of the reason he was leaving, true or not, part of the reason he was leaving was that Mississippi State was not getting it done in the NIL space. And then you mentioned yesterday him in being quoted as saying that there was less than $1 million raised, and everybody's like, whoa, no, that's not true. And now we've seen some pretty rapid growth with the Bulldog Initiative.
And you also had yesterday the interim athletic director, Bracky Brett, tweeted out just a message to Bulldog fans and mentioned specifically giving to the Bulldog Initiative. So, it makes me wonder. I don't know. I'm no marketer, but maybe mentioning it every now and then is useful.
Yeah.
As a tool for growth.
And that's why I wanted to talk about this. Because despite the refutation of the reports, the numbers that the collectives are putting out there, it's clear that Mississippi State is behind. They're behind Ole Miss. And if they're behind Ole Miss, they're behind almost the rest of the SEC. And for Ole Miss, a 400% growth in a week is awesome. My question is, what the heck took you so long? Why did it have to be Kiffin might go to Auburn or Cohen insulted you on the way out the door to get you to realize that the reason players are picking schools is because of that? Why did it take this to get people to understand that at this scale? I understand it's new and all of that stuff, but man, could you imagine what last recruiting class could have been? Had you had 3,000 members in the Grove Collective? Had you had over 1,000 members in the Bulldog Initiative? Why did it take Cohen's a jerk and Auburn's going to try to steal Kiffin for you to realize this is the most important thing that you can do as a fan? The most important thing you can do as a fan is giving to NIL if you want your teams to win.
I think from MSU's perspective, a lot of it was they didn't know. I think that your hardcore message board and social media types knew, but the thing I've been seeing a lot on those message boards where people are like, I'm telling my friends about the Bulldog Initiative, a lot of them didn't know. They didn't know. The university has not done a great job. You think back a few weeks ago to Ole Miss when they had that massive press conference to announce the Grove Collective. There hasn't been anything like that from Mississippi State. I think there probably will be in the near future. And also don't forget that Mississippi State's first foray into NIL was run by a now defunct group that decided from the beginning they wanted to focus on baseball. I mean, that put State behind huge. And it also, when you have something like that, and I speak from experience on this one from a previous job, something like that poisons the well. And what I mean is when you have a group that immediately goes under like that, which is what happened, and then you come back with a new group and you try to ask for money, the first thing people say is, wait a minute, I already gave money to this other group and now they're gone. Why would I give to you? That I've been told that put State massively behind, was the failure of the legacy group to get any traction. It's just now. And I think there's some spite involved for sure, but I think for the most part, I think that tweet yesterday from the university played a huge role. I think a lot of Bulldog fans who follow Mississippi State social accounts started looking like, what is the Bulldog Initiative? What can I do? And it started piling up from there.
Bracky Brett's tweet yesterday was, countless people have contacted me to offer their support and to ask how they can help Mississippi State's athletic department during our period of transition to a new athletic director. My answer to each of them has been consistent. Be optimistic, be present and vocal at our games, and support the NIL efforts of our friends at the Bulldog Initiative.
Good.
That's from Bracky Brett, who is acting as the interim director.
And
by the way, good guy, too. Bracky's a really good guy.
Love him.
The interim period is off to a good start. Because we get this message here. People shouldn't have to give this money and players shouldn't have to be bought. Do you want to win or not? Do you want to win or not? It's that simple. Because look, in the state of Mississippi...
And I'll tell you this. But I'll say, again, as a message board consumer, there are a lot of people who talk like that on those boards. And yesterday they were changing their tune.
Good.
They're like, I see now this is the way forward. We have to do this. If I am a Mississippi State fan. If I want my team to win, I have to do this. If you believe that you're not willing to do that, well, that's fine. But you might have really good seats in a stadium that were not a very good team.
Get a message on the C-Spire text line. So Ole Miss has the Grove Collective and the Oxford NIL Club. Is one better than the other? I joined both. I don't know, honestly, much about the Oxford NIL Club. Here's what I do know. Everybody in the Ole Miss athletics department is pushing one thing, and that's the Grove Collective. So, Sports Talk Mississippi.
Here on those NIL clubs that are, there's the Oxford one. There's one in Starkville. There's one. They're everywhere. That is run by some third-party organization, and they take a percentage. I think in State's case, it was like 18% of all donations. They take that right off the top for the company itself. Gotcha. So what I would tell you is if your university is pushing a specific collective, that is the one you want to send money to.
And now state law allows them to work together.
Yes. So I would expect to see more promotion.
Let's do a little public service. We are not telling you to spend money or not, but if you are interested in supporting the NIL efforts in Starkville or Oxford. In Starkville for Mississippi State, it's BulldogInitiative.com. That's a lot of I's and T's in there. Spell check if you need to. BulldogInitiative.com. If you are interested in supporting Ole Miss's NIL effort, it is thegrovecollective.com. That the at the beginning of it is important. Thegrovecollective.com. So that's the best way to go in there and make a donation. And both of those are growing, right? I mean, there was a tweet that Bulldog Initiative had now gone over 1,000 members. There is actually a member counter on the Grove Collective website now, and they're at 2,220 members.
So I just got a text for whatever it's worth. That counter they update manually. It's up over 3 now.
They're over 3,000. Oh.
Apparently so.
Okay. So. It's another good day at the office then for the Grove Collective.
And what's fascinating about this, right, and what I think is actually kind of cool, because people are talking about the cost and cost. And I talk about cost all the time. Cost to go to games is crazy. It is. But what these two groups have done is, because it's not pricing you out, if you're the little guy, and there's a lot of the little guy out there in terms of financial capability, you can still be a part of something for a very, very, very small amount. And
so
and
let's
help.
see, what's the entry level donation? If you click on the donate,
I tried to research this earlier. I believe for state, hey, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, is $5 a month. It could be more.
I'm not 100% sure on that.
But it's a small amount. And for Ole Miss, I believe it's $21.
It's $21 a month is the entry level. Now, you can make a single contribution, I think, of any amount, but if you're signing up for a monthly, a recurring donation, it's $21 a month.
And that's how you're going to be successful, is the crowd amount.
I was talking with someone I know who has worked in various levels of government and probably smarter than I am when it comes to financial things. And I asked him a question earlier this week. And there are probably some that would immediately push back and be like, oh, Richard, that's not what that money is intended for. In the case of, I'm going to talk about Oxford and Ole Miss for a second. But please understand that I am not saying this is unique to Oxford and Ole Miss. It's just where I live, and it's where I went to school. You could replace Oxford with Starkville, and you could place Ole Miss with Mississippi State. I asked my friend a question. I was like, tell me this. What is the biggest economic driver for the city of Oxford? It's not a trick question. It's a successful football team. There is nothing that drives the Oxford economy more than a successful football team. And if you want to go larger than that, you could just say a successful athletics program. Nothing brings people to Oxford more than people who are coming to town for Ole Miss sporting events. You've got 8 home regular season baseball weekends. You got, 16 home basketball games. Now, there are obviously other events, other reasons that people come into Oxford. But that brings the most people who go to hotels and fill up restaurants and all those things. And so the question that I asked was, what's the city doing to support the NIL efforts? And now this is where people might push back and might say, oh, no, you're stepping on toes a little bit. But I can make an argument, and I know that the local Oxford Chamber of Commerce put together an early NIL deal that was rolled into the Grove Collective. I just wonder if the people who make decisions at the leadership level in Oxford, and I don't know that the city could necessarily give directly to it, but should they be allocating money into the Chamber or Visit Oxford or the Economic Development Foundation or somewhere and have them then turn around and contribute from their budget to an NIL fund? And I don't know what that number is, right? I don't know if that number is $50,000 or $500,000 or $2 million. But I'm not sure where you would get a larger return on investment for the city than trying to help you continue to have competitive athletics teams that bring more people and bring more national publicity. And again, I'm talking about Oxford and Ole Miss specifically, but the exact same thing could be true in Starkville.
Do you feel that maybe I don't know what the word is, forgive my political ignorance, but basically to vote on an increase in sales tax with that money specifically designed to go directly to the collective?
Okay, so I mean, yes, you could do that, but that's far more complicated than it used to be. When you do a sales tax increase, there is a sunset period that exists. So it is not a forever, with a few exceptions. So when Ole Miss built Oxford University Stadium at Swayze Field in 1988, 1989, they implemented a food and beverage tax. It was a tourism tax, basically, where there was a 1% tax increase, and that went to cover the city's portion of the contribution to the stadium. But it did not have a sunset clause in it. At the time, the legislature didn't have that in place. And so Oxford has been allowed to keep that in perpetuity, and it goes largely to fund the city's tourism budget and other special projects. If a city or a county at this point puts in a special sales tax deal, one, it has to be approved by the legislature, and two, it has to have a finite time period on it. I may not have all of the details exact on that, but it's something that would have to be voted on and approved, and then would have to have an end date.
So you say it goes to tourism. Could that just be changed? So you keep the same tax you have on the books, but we say now we're going to funnel that money. And funnel's a bad word, I know, but we're going to send that money somewhere else. That else being the Grove Collective or the Bulldog Initiative. Because it feels like you're just sort of investing in yourself at that point, right? We invest in better athletes for our programs. We have better teams. We have more wins. More people come to town. More people eat at restaurants. More people shop. It feels like it takes care of itself, right?
I would argue that is yes. The answer to that question is yes. And again, I mean, I think that you are investing in the largest economic driver for your city. I think it makes a lot of sense. That's just me, though.
It's very interesting. If nothing else, I mean, I never would have thought about that had you not said it.
There's probably a different route where I should have presented that idea, but I just thought, you know what? Let's just talk about it on the radio. I said 1%. It's actually a 2% tax in Oxford.
Yeah.
Kevin says probably completely against the law, but how about an NIL tax of 1% on lodging and restaurants only on home football game weekends? And again, Kevin, it's not just as simple as, hey, let's enact that. You can't just self-impose taxes. That has to be cleared through a lot of different channels. But I do think, again, I think you could make a really strong argument in the case of Oxford and Starkville that when you look at budgeting for the coming year, and you'd have to figure out the proper above-board way to do it, but I think you could absolutely allocate a certain an increase to a budget of your local tourism outlet. I mean, Visit Oxford is a sponsor of ours on the show, right? We talk about them all the time. Sports Talk Mississippi, by the way, brought to you in part by Visit Oxford. You can find them online at visitoxfordms.com and follow them on their social media channels as well, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. But if you allocated, whatever the number is, $500,000 to their budget with the understanding that that is then going into an NIL fund, and then you can go different ways. You can take student athletes and then use them for specific advertising purposes through a anyway, the conversation we were having before the break. This one comes from, it's a 901 number. David in DeSoto County. He says, I'm a member of the Grove Collective, completely, though, against giving public funds to NIL as an economic incentive for the city. While your argument is moderately valid, that's not what taxes are for. This should be completely private. Just my 2 cents, no pun intended. That's
such a good point.
Yeah, that was actually quite well put, David. My response would be that public funds support private ventures all the time, and this is not really any different. And I said when I put this, we started talking about this, this would be something that would get immediate pushback from lots of people. I think Nashville is kicking $700 million into the new stadium project. Not because they want to spend $700 million, but because they do want a new stadium to bring a Super Bowl, Final Four, more concerts, more massive events to Nashville to continue to support what is a thriving economic tourist destination.
The renderings look like a giant Topgolf, and once somebody told me that's what it looked like, I can't unsee that.
Well, I mean, you still call the stadium in Vegas a Roomba.
Because it's a giant Roomba.
It looks like a Roomba.
So we got a couple of questions, and somebody texted me about this as well. It's like, well, what happens to the facilities projects? they're not a priority right now. It could regress back to the mean, maybe it does, but you don't have to have the best facilities anymore. You just got to have adequate ones. They can't be, the roof can't be caving in and there's leaks everywhere and your weight room equipment is falling apart. You got to be up to date there. There are other reasons why players choose schools besides just money. Recruiting is still important. I've read a lot of stories about players saying that they were offered more to go to a different place, but they liked the school they chose better, and so that's where they went. But the priorities have changed. They have. This is priority one in most recruitments. And so you don't have to have the super duper nice, locker room with a fountain and a 70-inch TV above every locker. You don't have to have that anymore. You got to make sure you can take care of the player.
So let's think about this, right? I mean, so in Mississippi State's case, the stadium looks better than it has ever looked.
Mm-hmm. It still needs some work on a few things, but yeah.
The west side, there's some work that needs to be done there, but it is absolutely adequate. There's a football-only building at Mississippi State. There's a better locker room for Mississippi State football than they've ever had that's in the stadium as well. They're in pretty good shape. Brand new baseball stadium. They're doing Humphrey Coliseum right now.
Yeah.
At Ole Miss, they just announced, at the Sugar Bowl last year, the 280, 350 million, whatever the number was, project for athletics. And then they followed it up with an announcement that said, hey, we're going to put the stadium piece of this on pause as we evaluate the changing landscape as it pertains to NIL. There's a finite amount of money out there that people can give, and you can't give to everything and have everything be good. And so they're doing some phased stuff, right? The Manning Center was priority number one. They started that, and it's well on its way, which is new locker room, new weight room, new coaches' offices, tying all that together right there on the south end of the stadium. They're going with the new softball facility. They're moving forward with that. There was some baseball stuff in there. We'll see where that ends up falling. I mean, baseball's coming off a national championship. Does that push? But the big piece of the entire across-the-board facilities plan was football. And it was a couple $100 million. And, oh, by the way, this is the worst time in the last 50 years to be trying to do a major construction project, because prices have gone through the roof. And the cost of borrowing money has gone through the roof. So they press pause on that, put more of a focus on NIL, and they're going to circle back to the stadium. There may be some temporary stuff they have to do without doing a tear down the west side of the stadium and completely rebuild it.
So this is what I have a cousin. You guys know him. He runs the message board at Six Packs Peak. Mm-hmm. And his plan was this, and this is what he's doing. What?
I started to say his name, but I didn't know if I could do that or not.
We don't need to do all that. But everybody, if you donate to the Bulldog Club, if you donate to the Loyalty Foundation for your tickets, right? Almost everyone who does that has this is how much I pay for the tickets. This is what my donation has to be for me to get the seats I want. But a lot of those people just say donate over that, right? Don't. Donate what it takes to get your tickets. And then the rest of that, send that over to NIL. That way you're donating the same amount of money, and you're still getting the same tickets you've always enjoyed, but now you're helping out your NIL and hopefully helping out the product you're getting to view.
I'm not 100% sure that leadership in Starkville and Oxford would sign off on that particular, because look, the foundations support the activity. Well, yes, but there still is a role that the money that's raised through the Bulldog Club and the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation, there's still a pretty important role that plays in the budgets of the athletics department.
No question, but that is a way that I'm not worried about the administration. I'm worried about Joe Fan, who's like, I want to donate, but how do I don't want to give extra money. There's a avenue for you to do it.
Mike in Madison says a Mississippi State fan living in Oxford might not want his taxes helping the University of Mississippi. Well, that might be accurate, but that same Mississippi State fan that lives in Oxford benefits from a great public school system, from all of the other things that Oxford benefits from based on revenue coming into the community, largely tied to athletic success. And so that person can probably get over it.
Yeah, you still get benefits. I mean, you're still going to get the good restaurants and the good places to go, and the good shopping.
It's slightly different, but my hyper local politicians, not the biggest fan of, truthfully. But they do good jobs, and I directly benefit from that. So I can't complain. There are things that they do that I don't like. But the way they run where I live is very good and efficient, and therefore I suck up the stuff that I don't like, and I deal with it because I get a benefit, and I benefit from that. And so I deal with it, and I don't complain.
Yeah. Hunter in Byhalia says, can you imagine the NIL money around Archie Manning in 1969?
Ooh. Dude, Zion would have been a multi-millionaire for 6 months at Duke.
Well,
wait, wasn't he already?
Yeah.
Zion's something because it's so recent, right? You go back in time to like Archie Manning. I mean, he might own like a huge chunk of what is the biggest company in Mississippi right now. I mean, he might be like on the board with 48% of their stock at this point in his life.
Dan in Hattiesburg says, could the school add an athletic fee to its tuition? Southern Miss charged $60 per semester to build the Payne Center years ago. And he said, by the way, those funds at USM were voted upon by the student body. I think you get in
because
kind
the school
of a great...
can't. Well, the school can't donate.
Right.
So
at least as it
those things can go for
right
facilities,
now.
But
yeah,
right.
Bo in Indianola, I think this was in response to the message earlier about, I don't want to contribute to this and I don't want to pay players. Bo said, in this day and age, if you're not going to pay your players through NIL, you're going to have a 6-6 team. And now, he was trying to take a shot at State at the end of it, but, I'll take that off of it and say.
What?
Yeah.
Bo? And you still, that still might happen. That's kind of what happens in sports sometimes. Ask Texas A&M, but. And what's so different about Mississippi is, let's be honest, when it comes to Ole Miss and State, we don't have what they have at Texas A&M here. We don't have what they have even in Louisiana because it's a one-trick pony in that state. It's LSU, and that's it. So the people in charge do have to be more creative because just dollar for dollar, fan for fan, Texas A&M is going to beat Ole Miss and Mississippi State every time. Not on the football field. Ole Miss and State dominate Texas A&M on the football field. But in recruiting and NIL, you dominate. Own Texas A&M. Own them. But in the recruiting space, the people in charge have to be creative and find different ways to do this, and fans have to be willing, or else the gap that already exists between Mississippi and Texas will get wider. You have to find creative ways to close the gap. You never will completely, but you can get closer.